Now we'll go ahead and share the desktop with you, and we'll open up Turning Point and bring up that additional topics presentation. Now, if you've been through my intermediate class, you do remember how I basically just built upon the functionality in the software. Now, the first half of this advanced class is more of that, so we'll talk about some additional features you can take advantage of, but really the chunk of this class that is going to be most important is something called session management. Session management is basically everything you can do with the results after they've been saved. So there's nothing you immediately do, but you can come back next week, next month, maybe even next year, and you can do such things as combining individual results and also aggregating data over various presentations. So we're going to cover that at the back half of this class, but right at the beginning, though, we're going to talk about some additional functionality that you can take advantage of within the software. Now, the first thing that I'm going to talk about today is something called conditional branching. And as you can see, I clicked on my Tools tab from the ribbon, and the fourth option down was called Conditional Branching. Now, with conditional branching, I can basically set certain conditions that will determine which slide in the presentation it goes to next, which all depends on how my students or audience answer particular questions. Now, before I can even access this conditional branching, I must create my entire presentation. So every single Turning Point slide, as well as every single PowerPoint slide, needs to be built in there. I've already done that. So now I'm going to click the conditional branching. And when I do this, the first thing that it wants me to go ahead and do is select a slide. I'm basically selecting a slide to branch from. Now, when I click my drop-down menu, the only thing that we're going to view here are Turning Point slides. We're not going to see any PowerPoint slides because, of course, our students will not be answering PowerPoint questions. Not possible. So therefore, we can't branch from PowerPoint slides, only the Turning Points. So if I click slide number 8, which is how familiar, tough word right there, are you with Turning Points? I've now selected this slide to go ahead and branch from. So now the next thing that I'm going to do is add a rule. So basically, I'm determining conditions. So something needs to happen in terms of how my students answer this question for it to not go to slide number 9, but to instead go to a different slide. So I'm going to click this Add button. So when I click Add, I'm now going to go ahead and put in a condition and then determine the slide selection. So basically, what needs to happen in terms of how they answer the question. So I'm going to click on where it reads condition, and I can go ahead and determine if I want the condition to be by percentage, number of responders, or also majority rules. I'll click on majority rules for right now. Press OK, and now the next thing I need to do is determine what the answer choice is going to be. So I've said if the majority of the audience answers something with how familiar are you with Turning Point, but now I need to determine what that something is. So I'm going to click on Selected Answer. I'm going to see all those answer choice. I'll select Very Familiar. Press OK on this menu because I'm all done. And now I have one final thing to do, and that is to determine which slide it will go to if indeed that condition was met. So now I'm going to select Slide Selection. And when you see when I click on Slide Selection, I see absolutely every slide in my presentation. So I can branch to PowerPoint slides, but I can't branch from PowerPoint slides. So if I wanted to go to maybe slide number 12, I'm going to click on 12, press OK, and now my conditions have been determined. Now I've only set a condition for one answer choice for this question, but I still have 3 other options. I have familiar, somewhat familiar, not very familiar, and what's that? So from here I can go ahead and create additional branches from this question. So if I wanted to create another rule for this, I click Add. You can now see this is rule number 2. Maybe I want to do majority rules, and they answer not at all. And if they answer not at all, maybe I want to go back to slide number 1. So now I have just built that condition as well. Now I want you guys to notice over here on the right-hand side how we have an AND condition as well as an OR condition. Now if I click on an AND condition, watch what happens down there with the hyperlinks. It reads, if majority rules and hyperlink condition, then go to slide 1. This means that both things must happen. So it's an AND condition, means both things must be satisfied in order, in this case, for it to go to slide number 1. If it only meets one of those conditions, then it's just going to go to the next slide in the presentation. Now we also have an OR condition, which means one or the other. Okay, so either one or the other things happened, then it will go ahead and move to that slide. Now when I'm all done creating conditions, so on and so forth for this, I can now go ahead and just bring up a different slide, and if I wanted to, I can branch from this one. I got to be honest, guys, I've seen this get extremely complicated, and I've seen this be very surface level in terms of only doing one branch. Now, the majority of the time, it's only one branch. So they may bring up a beginning slide, and maybe it's a knowledge check. So how much information do you currently know about fill-in-the-blank topic? And if the majority of the audience says this, then it's going to jump to that. If it doesn't meet that majority, then it's just going to go through the presentation. And people usually leave it just right there. But if I know this is going to be a PowerPoint presentation that I might want to use several times over, and maybe for several different audiences over, a long period of time, then why not set up a bunch of different conditions to make it even more engaging, even more interactive? Because once you go ahead and build these conditions, it is now attached to this presentation, and you can even take this presentation to a different computer, and those conditions are still attached within there. They're now part of the presentation. But of course, if you take it to a different computer, as we always know, TurningPoint must be on there in order for the conditions to take place. Now, you guys have any questions in terms of setting up or running a presentation that has conditional branching?
I don't think so.
All right. Now, the other thing I'm going to show you here may not be so relevant in education. It's more of a corporate and government option that we have, but it may be to you guys, and I want to definitely show it. And this is something called Ranking Wizard. The Ranking Wizard is what we describe as our decision-making tool. So it allows you to rank multiple levels of criteria on multiple levels of condition. Now, if you remember from our intermediate class, I did talk about priority ranking. Now, priority ranking would allow audience members to rank items based on importance. It's kind of like the priority ranking times 10. So we'll take a look at it. Now, with the Ranking Wizard, I need to go ahead and establish some type of scenario in which you may want to use this. So, Jeff, give me an idea of what department you guys work in or what you guys teach.
Risk management education.
Risk management education, very good.
Yeah.
And let's say that your department was awarded $1 million. So you guys have $1 million, and as a staff, as a crew, you guys need to determine what it is you're going to do with that $1 million. And by determining, you're going to use the Ranking Wizard to help you along. Now, the first thing that I want you to do is add items that you want to rank or compare. So basically, if you get that $1 million, what are some things that you want to use the $1 million for? So, Jeff, let me pose the question to you guys. Let's say somebody wrote you a check for $1 million. What would be one thing that you guys want to do with that $1 million?
Improve the quality of our web-based education.
Okay, improve web-based ed, and I'm going to add it in there. Give me one more thing, Jeff. And it could be nonsense. It doesn't have to be.
Upgrade IT infrastructure.
Very good. Upgrade IT. Okay. Did I spell that right, by the way? Infrastructure? Probably not.
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
I think we all get the idea, though. All right, now I must have at least two things in there that I want to rank or compare. And basically, this is what I want to do with that money. So now that I have it in there, I'm going to click Next. Now I need to determine what the criteria is going to be. Or, Jeff, this is basically what we want the outcome to be if we invested into IT infrastructure or if we invested into improving the web-based education. So give me two things that we want the ultimate goal to be if we use the money for that.
First one. Yeah, for the first would be obtain more clients.
What was it with more clients?
Obtain more clients.
Mm-hmm. All right, one more.
For the first one.
Grow revenue?
Sure. Grow revenue?
Okay, more revenue. All right, now you can see you could possibly put a Z criteria in there if you want to, which would add another criteria to the equation. I'm going to go ahead and keep this unchecked. Now, for right now, in the training purposes, I'm going to keep everything in the default, standard XY. We're going to group by criteria, and we do not want to show charts or auto advance. Now, I'm going to click Next. I'm going to go ahead and determine what I want the ranking scale to be. Now, in my opinion, 1 through 10 is pretty broad in terms of deciding the highest and the lowest. I like 1 through 5. So I'm going to uncheck 6 through 10. And if I wanted to, I could go ahead and edit the text here so everybody knows that 1 is the lowest and that 5 is the highest. Click Next. It's wanting me to go ahead now and review my selections. And when I click Finish, it's going to go ahead and build my slides into this presentation. All right, now, I have my slides into that presentation. Let's go ahead and pop it over here on simulated data, and let's see what the outcome is going to be. So if we're running through this, if we use the money, and we invest it all into improved web-based education, how much do we believe that's going to obtain more clients? 1 for lowest and 5 for highest. Get the results, shut down the polling, it goes to the very next one. We want to use it to upgrade the IT infrastructure. How much is that going to help us obtain more clients? Goes to the next set. Improve web-based connection, or education, excuse me. How much is that going to increase revenue? And upgrade the IT infrastructure, how much is that going to increase the revenue? Now this time when I shut down polling, it is going to finally give me this scatter plot. And since we are running this on the simulated data, it's giving us those bubbles, very, very small. But of course this is going to correlate to the importance of what the audience felt if we ran it live. But if you take a look at this XY coordinates, more revenue is being represented on the horizontal axis. Obtain more clients is being represented on the vertical axis. So it appears, if I take a look at the vertical axis, that my group believes that if we use the money to upgrade the IT infrastructure, that will help us obtain more clients than using it to improve our web-based education. And just barely, if we use the money to upgrade the IT infrastructure, everyone believes that's going to increase revenue more than the obtain more clients as well. Excuse me, if I use it, yeah, I said that correctly. Okay, so this is what we have here with the ranking wizard, where we can rank multiple items, multiple different levels of criteria. Like I said, it's not a very popular feature, but of course I like to include it just in case there's anybody out here who definitely wants to use this. It gives them another option. You guys have any questions in terms of setting up or running this ranking wizard?
No.
No.
Okay. Now I want to go ahead and change gears a little bit. I'm going to change gears and talk about session management. So to make this as practical as possible, you would not be accessing this session management within a presentation. You're just going to open up a blank turning point. Now think about what the word session means. It means results. So this is results management. So this is what we're going to do with the result files. So we're going to open up turning points. And to access this session management, I'm going to click on the Tools tab, and the second option down is indeed Session Management. Now I'm going to bring my cursor over top of Session Management. It gives me a drop-down menu on the right-hand side, and we're going to go from the bottom and work our way up to the top on this. So the first thing that we have down here is something called Editing a Session. Once again, think about what the word session means. It means results. So yes, we're going to edit results from here. So if I click on Edit a Session, it immediately wants us to go ahead and open up a session file. So basically, once again, we're going to go ahead and open up a result file. Let's pick a different one with more questions. There we go. And when I open up a session file, it's going to show me every question that I asked, and it will also show me every single answer choice. This was a session that I ran probably about 3 months ago. But by going through editing a session and right-clicking over top of a particular question, I'm going to get a drop-down menu that looks just like this. Now from the drop-down menu, I have 4 different options. Option number 1 is that I can change the question type to a demographic. So let's say I just learned about these demographics, but I've been running presentations now for months. And I go back through Edit a Session and I take a look at some of these questions within the presentation, and I really decided to myself that I would have loved to have been able to track demographics. By right-clicking over top of a question, and then clicking on, and that's a left click, where it says change question type to a demographic. I have now just made this a demographic. So now I can come down the lower right hand corner, resave the session. And when I resave the session, I now have demographics associated with that session file, which ultimately means I can generate demographic reports, where I currently couldn't do that. I couldn't do that before I edited the session. But I can change anything about the questions or the answer choices through this. Now, because it is a demographic question, it's now reading it as change question type to a standard. But the option I have directly below there reads change default correct point value. So if this question was originally worth maybe 5 points, but coming back in here, I want it to be worth 10, It could be changed right from here. Okay, so now I can make this question worth 10 points. If I change something and I change anything from within here, I have to resave the session because I'm overriding what I currently had in there. I can change the default incorrect point value, or the one that I like the best is excluding the question. We've all been in this situation where we go back and we take a look at the questions and we determine they weren't very good questions. Or we can see the majority of our students got the question wrong. By excluding the question, it's now no longer going to keep it within the session file. It's no longer part of it. So if we resave this session file and generate the reports, it's going to completely exclude the question, which hopefully means the students' grades will increase. You guys have any questions on what we can do by right-clicking over top of a question within the edit session file?
No questions.
All right, now if I right-click over top of an answer choice, I also have 4 options. The first 2, change answer value to correct and incorrect, basically allows us to fix our mistake. So if originally we set up a presentation and an answer choice was set as correct when it should have been incorrect, I can fix it here and also vice versa. I can also change answer value to a point value. So if I want each answer choice to be worth a different amount of points, this will allow me to do it. And also down here I have clear answer value, which means that this answer choice would not be worth any points. So no points gained or lost from getting it right or wrong. Basically, editing a session allows you to change anything about the questions, anything about the answer choices. The only thing it doesn't allow you to alter is how those students answered it. Of course, that'd be pretty unethical of us all if we did that, so that's not going to be an option right there. But we can't change anything about the question or answer choices after the session file has been saved. Any questions at all on editing a session?
No.
All right. Next option that we have here is something called Send Session. Once again, I know I'm a broken record here, but think about what the word session means. This is a result file. So I'm sending the results to somebody, but it's through a session file. Well, what's going to be the only way that somebody can open up the session file? If they have turning points. If they don't have turning points, it's pointless sending them this session file because it's useless to them. The advantage of sending them the session file, if they do indeed have turning points, is that they can choose their own reports to generate. They can generate whatever reports they want to. If they don't have turning points, then you want to generate the report into Excel and then send them the Excel file. Now, we use this here in the training department if we're doing on-site trainings. So if we're doing on-site trainings and we do an evaluation at the end, well, the trainers that go out there and do the on-site, they send the evaluations to me. Well, I don't want them to generate reports on their own session, so they just send me the session file on the evaluation. And I'm able to go ahead and view it and pick the reports that I want to generate. So that gives you the option to go ahead and pick your own reports as the recipient. Any questions, that is, on sending session files?
No.
No.
Next option that we have there, extract the session file in an XML format, is probably the least used option in here. In fact, I'm surprised it's even still in there with our updated version. Basically allows you to go ahead and generate the reports in an XML format. I've been working at the company now for almost 3 years, and I've only seen one person actually do this, but it is in there. If you use XML, it will allow you to go ahead and generate the reports in that format. Usually if you're doing some type of statistical program, you may need it in XML, and this will put it in there. Extract the PowerPoint presentation. Extracting the PowerPoint presentation allows you to identify the presentation by selecting the session file. So if you're like myself, you have a bunch of different session files that have been saved. I have way too many, and they're probably all from the same 3 presentations. Now, if I click on a session file, it's going to open up a screen, and it's going to tell me the exact file name. This is the PowerPoint that was used to gather these results. As long as the PowerPoint presentation is still on my computer, it's going to open it up and tell me what the file name is. So now at this time, I can go ahead and navigate and find the PowerPoint. It's just a nice little housekeeping tool, so I can keep track of which PowerPoints were used for particular session files. Now, if I no longer have the PowerPoint, such as maybe this one, it's going to tell me the PowerPoint presentation was not found in that session file. That means that I deleted it off my computer. So it's no longer even going to be searchable when I click on this through Extract PowerPoint Presentation. Any questions at all on extracting a PowerPoint presentation through that session management?
No.
For right now, we're going to skip over extract participant list, and I'm only going to cover that if it's something you guys foresee yourselves using, but I am going to cover the two most popular options right now, which are merge session files and participant merge. Merging session files will allow you to go ahead and aggregate information from multiple different sessions. This is going to be used in two different types of scenarios. First of all, if I have the same PowerPoints with the same turning point questions, and I use that with various audiences, maybe 2, 3, 4, 20 audiences, and it's all the same presentation, well, that means that I have 2, 3, 4, 20 different session files. But if I merge them all together, it's going to aggregate the results into one single session file, and it's going to combine the data from all the questions. The other way merging session, or the other thing merging session files will do, is that if you have different questions, but maybe you have the same audience go through them, instead of having all these individual session files out there, it'll merge all the questions into one single session file, so you can see all the questions from all the presentations in that one file. So let's go ahead and click on this. Now, when I click on Merge Session Files, immediately it wants me to go ahead and select the files that I want to merge together. So if I scroll down here, I'll merge together all the ones that say Aaron. Okay, so I'm going to hold down my Shift key. And I got quite a few on there. Now that I've highlighted all the session files that I want to merge together, I'm going to click the Merge tab in the lower left-hand corner. It's going to pop up the Merge Turning Session, and basically from here, I need to name this newly created merge. So maybe I want to call it Final, well, we don't want to go 12, so let's go 13. Click Save, and now it's going to tell me the merge has been completed successfully. Okay, sounds good. But I do want you to recognize that if I scroll down here, I still have the individual Aaron files. But now I have an additional file called Aaron 13, and there it is right there. Okay, so it's going to be a combined session file. So this is great. I have a merge session file, which is going to go ahead and aggregate all the information together. The most important thing about this, though, and the whole goal of this, is to be able to generate reports. So now if I go to Reports, I'm going to select that session file, which is Aaron 13, double-click, and I'm going to go ahead and generate a graphical results by, well, you know what, we'll just do a results. Click Generate Reports. Now, in these sessions, the questions were the same. They were identically the same because it was the same presentation. So it's going to go ahead and aggregate all that information together. It's just going to combine it all. The great thing about TurningPoint is that it is looking for the same question. It doesn't even matter where the question is located in those various presentations. If the question was the same, it will combine the information. Now, when I say the same, I mean the same in every possible way. So if there's a period on the end of one sentence, even if the question's identical in another presentation, if there's no period on it, the software reads it as a completely separate question. And if that's the case, it's going to list it directly below it as a separate question. So take a look at this one. You can see the total for question 1 is 504. I can promise you that there were not ever 504 people in a single audience. But because the question was the same, it aggregated all the information together into one final result. If the questions were different, then it's just going to list them in a vertical fashion on top of each other. This is Merge Session Files. You guys have any questions on this?
No.
All right. Now, can you guys see any relevance to any of this stuff I'm showing you so far? Because it's so tough sometimes with the advanced session, because a lot of the information is kind of abstract unless you immediately see yourself using it. But how about those merge session files? Can you see yourselves using that?
Yeah, I think it's good to know that it has these features because we definitely have a need for some of those.
Right, definitely. It's good to know that it's there. Another option that we have here is participant merge. A participant merge is just a simple way to get a final grade on a student. So let's say the student went through 10 presentations that involved TurningPoint slides, which means they have 10 different grades. Well, if we're just looking for one final grade that we can put into a larger grade book, the participant merge will do this for me. So if I click on participant merge, this is the part that is not very intuitive, if I can be completely honest with you. So really tune in for this with what needs to be done from this step. You have an option here regardless of what you decide, you still need to put in a folder. But the option is you can put in the individual session files and separate them by putting in individual folders, or you can just put in one folder and put in every single session file and just generate a report. I'm going to do both things, and I'm going to show you the difference that I mean. It's tough for me to explain it. It's better to just show it. So let's say I want to combine maybe 3 quizzes. Okay, so I had the same audience that went through 3 quizzes. So I put the first folder in there and it reads quiz 1. And let's say this Kathy file was indeed quiz 1. I put it in there. And they also had another quiz, and we'll call this quiz 2. Puts it in there. Bring in the session file. And then maybe last week they had another quiz, and we'll call this, go figure, quiz 3. And we're going to go ahead and bring it over. Okay, so we have 3 session files. And with these 3 session files, I have them separated as quiz 1, quiz 2, and quiz 3, which means when I click this merge tab down in the lower right-hand corner, I'm going to see 4 columns. I'm going to see a column for their grade with quiz 1, quiz 2, and quiz 3, and then I'm going to see a final column with their combined average. All right, just click merge. Now with this merge, you're going to see some goofy numbers, and I'll tell you why in a moment. First of all, you guys are going to be using participant list if this is the case, which means you're going to have first and last name in here. That's the whole point of a participant merge. You're seeing individual results. Since I did put those individual folders in there, I have quiz 1, quiz 2, and quiz 3, and then a final. Now, the reason I have 1,133% is because these are merges on top of merges on top of merges, and it's just getting out of control. I definitely need to start from scratch here. But you're going to have these individual grades. You're going to have the individual grades, and it's going to give you a final average in this total column. This is the first way to do this participant merge. So if you want to separate those individual grades out, you can still see them. Now the other way to do the participant merge is to just put in one folder. Okay, so maybe we call this final. And then we put in all the ones that we want in that folder. Okay, so maybe this is the same group, and these are all their session files. Okay, we'll put 4 of them in there. So now we just click merge. And if I'm not interested in seeing each individual grade, it's going to give me the final, which I called that folder, and the total is going to be the same thing, of course. Okay, so it's just going to give me a final average. It's not actually going to give me each individual grade. Okay, so this is a participant merge. This is a nice, easy, quick way to get a combined average on a student who's gone through multiple different Turning Point presentations. Now keep this in mind. I can have a bunch of different classes in here, and I can combine them all. Because here's the great thing about Turning Point, once again. It just looks for students' names. So if no one's going to have my name, Kevin Herholtz. So if Kevin Herholtz is in 5 different presentations, Turning Point's looking for that name to combine that average. Now, if there's a Joe Smith in one session and a Joe Smith in another, I better have something that distinguishes the difference between the 2 Joe Smiths. So I better have Joe D. Smith or something like that. Because Turning Point will recognize that as the same exact person because it's looking for a person's name to get a combined average. It doesn't even matter if the person is in various participant lists. If there's a Joe Smith in 5 different lists, then it's going to combine all those Joe Smith averages together. Does that make sense what I'm saying, guys?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And I do want to go ahead and note that on this participant merge, I was keeping it on percentage correct, but you can also do points. And available fields for merge, first name, last name, and device ID. And it's just basically what it is you want that first column to be. So I kept the device ID. You might want first name, last name, so on and so forth. But it is pretty easy once you understand that you can do individual grade, or you can also do a total final column as well. Any questions on that participant merge?
No.
Okay. And back up to the session management. 2 more options that are not very frequently used are export to a CSV and export the session data. Now this would allow you to go ahead and send it to a particular grade book if you're using something perhaps like Easy Grade Pro or something like that. So if I export the session data, find the data that I want to export, or the session file, determine what it is about that session that I want to export, click Next. Once again, include specific data to export. And then from here, this is where it gets, you have to really know what your final result is going to ask for here, or where you're trying to export. Most of the time it is comma delimited. And then from here you can go ahead and do a final verification report of everything that's going to be in there and click Finish. Okay, so this is going to send it to whatever grade book you may be using. Most of the time it's Easy Grade Pro, which is the easiest transition. Now, since, guys, it is pretty much like a private session here, is there anything that you're still wondering about in terms of this technology, whether or not it can accomplish something? Because I can really direct the rest of this training the way that you guys want to go. If not, then I would like to go into the TurningPoint settings and talk about some of the different options in there.
Well, no, I can't.
Yeah, we were more curious on what was covered in this class, because we did play with it, and the software is very intuitive, very nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good. I appreciate that feedback, guys.
So we didn't really get stumped anywhere, but
okay.
This is kind of like, what features did we not explore because we didn't know they existed?
Of course, definitely. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and expose you to a couple other things that are available within the software that I usually don't cover in classes just because people maybe use them less than 1% of the time. And I'm going to show you one of these right away. This is actually down at the very bottom of the Insert Slide tab, and it's called Moment to Moment. So the Moment to Moment, the best way to describe this is if you guys can think back a couple years ago when the presidential debates were going on, and they had a live audience in there, and if the audience liked what the candidate was saying, the little red line would go up. If they didn't like what the candidate was saying, the little red line would go down. This is the same thing. In fact, that was our technology that was used for that. So if I go ahead and start this moment to moment, and I have response cards in front of me, it's going to take a reading every 2 seconds. Okay, so if somebody's talking, or maybe I'm watching a video and I really like it, I'm going to click a 5. Click a 5, you're going to see it's going up. Now, I'm obviously the only person answering, and I only have one card, but it would take an average of how the audience is answering every 2 seconds. Okay, so this is moment to moment right here, and the moment to moment, the only time I've ever seen this used was actually in higher education. Somebody had a psychology class, and they were showing a video. And at certain segments of the video, the professor would ask their students how they felt about what was being shown. Now, of course, the professor was not projecting this. They were just sitting back at their computer, and they're analyzing the results because they knew exactly what was happening at that video at a particular time segment. So they knew exactly what was going on at 44 seconds. And they're able to really gauge the reaction of the audience based on this moment-to-moment. That's not a very widely used feature, but that is available within the technology that we have here.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is a pretty cool thing. Definitely is. No doubt about it. Now, I do want to go ahead and talk about some of these icons up here which have not yet been covered, and if we did cover them, we haven't talked about everything in there yet. The first thing is reset. We all know what resetting the session does. Basically resets the slides, gets them down the ground level, gets us ready to go ahead and pull the audience. And if we had the same presentation and we had a couple of different audiences going through it, we would make sure that we reset the session from one audience to the next. But what about this current slide and all slides? Well, the all slides is actually very powerful. Let's say that I am teaching class and I have an 8 a.m. class and I have a 10 a.m. And they're both the same class, which means they're pretty much going to go through the same presentation. Well, after the 8 a.m. class gets done, I'm not going to save their session. I'm not going to save the results. I am instead just going to reset all slides. Now, after the 10 a.m. class gets done, now I save the session. Because I just reset all slides, and I didn't reset the entire session, that means that when I generate the reports, it's going to combine the results from both classes. So you may be thinking to yourself, well, what's the difference between that and merging session files? Well, there's not really a large difference between it, but there's no way to merge session file or reset all slides for classes that are not back-to-back. You wouldn't want to do that because you wouldn't be keeping a PowerPoint presentation open. But if I had back-to-back classes and they were going through the same presentation, and I didn't want individual results from each class, I just want it combined, instead of resetting the session, I would just reset all slides and allow the information to just go ahead and compound. You guys understand what I mean by all slides?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yeah.
So same thing with the current slide. So if you just want to build on the information from a particular one single slide, this will allow you to do it. Continue prior session. Well, think about what the word's saying. It's continuing a prior result. So let's say I'm running a presentation. I have 10 turning point slides. But on day one, I only get through 5 of those. Well, if I only got through 5, I still need to save those results. I still need to save the information. So I'm still going to save the session after day 1. Day 2, I come back and I need to finish the presentation. So I'm just going to open up TurningPoint and click on Continue Prior Session. I can go ahead from here, find the session file in PowerPoint that I want to continue. I can bring it up, and I'm just going to go ahead and build on that presentation. So, of course, I would start with slide number 5. And then I would go ahead and resave the session, and it's going to go ahead now and override the previous session file. So you're just going to build on a presentation that perhaps you just did not complete yet. That's Continue Prior Session. You guys have any questions on that icon?
No.
No.
Okay. Now, convert to picture slide. I want to show you guys this. This allows you to go ahead and keep pictures as answer choices rather than text. So if you want to do this, the first thing you're going to do is actually just insert a regular chart slide. And with this chart slide, I'm going to go ahead and type it out with however it is I want to ask the question. So this is going to be a really long question, so I'm going to go ahead and make it short. So I'm just going to put, who is the president? And I have pictures. I was almost Spanish for a second. I have pictures that's going to go ahead and represent these presidents. Now, I am going to go ahead and type out the names of the presidents that I have pictures of. So I have JFK, I have FDR, I have Carter, and I also have Washington. Okay, so right now, as we can see, we just have a standard question and answer slide. Nothing unique about this. At this step, I'm going to go ahead and bring these pictures in as answer choices. So I'm going to click on my Insert tab on the regular PowerPoint toolbar, and I'm going to click on Picture. So these are the files with all my pictures in here. I know that FDR is an answer choice, so I'll bring him in. And Carter. I have George Washington. And I also have JFK in here somewhere. There he is. All right. Now, of course, my next step is to go ahead and size these pictures and arrange them in the order that I want them to be answer choices. So my first person up there is JFK. So I'm going to bring JFK up here, and I'm going to blow. Well, that's a little bit wrong, right? Saying blow up. Don't want to do that. Just make it a little bit larger. There we go. All right, so the next thing I want to do is go ahead and bring FDR over, increase the size of his picture. Now we got Washington, excuse me, and Carter, and then Washington. Okay, so now these are the order that they are answer choices, and I can actually arrange these any way I want. So if I wanted to scatter them all over this page, that's completely fine. There's no problem with that. Now I need to actually make these pictures answer choices. To do this, by holding down my Shift key, I'm going to go ahead and press or click on each picture in the order that I want them to be answer choices. So holding down the Shift key, I'm going to click on JFK first, then FDR, then Carter, and then Washington. Now I'm going to come up here to my TurningPoint ribbon and click on the icon which reads Convert to Picture Slide. Now that I've done this, I have pictures as answer choices rather than the text. Now the whole reason of actually typing out the name of these pictures is it does put it below the charts. Okay,
cool.
so that's why I typed it out first. Now what you could do, if you didn't even want your students to see the names below the charts, then you can just go ahead and bring the pictures in and convert it to picture slide. And instead of it having names below the charts, it's just going to say picture choice 1, picture choice 2, picture choice 3, so on and so forth. You guys have any questions on converting slides to picture slides?
Nope.
All right. Let's go over here to the Insert Object tab, and some of these we have not yet talked about, including these first two, charts and animated charts. The Charts tab actually does two separate things. The first thing that it does is very basic. Notice how I initially have a vertical chart in there. If I decide when I'm still creating the presentation that I want my students to see the results in a different type of chart format, I can just go ahead and change it from here. Basically, I don't have to cut the slide out and start from scratch if I just want to change the charts. Now, probably the most important option here and the most powerful thing that we can do with charts is convert PowerPoint slides to TurningPoint slides. So if I already have created PowerPoint slides that have questions in there, I can go ahead and convert those to TurningPoint as long as they are in the appropriate format. Let me show you what I mean. So right now I'm just going to go ahead and insert a regular PowerPoint slide, and the format must be title and text. In other words, the question needs to be up here in the title box, and the answer choices need to be in the text box below. Now remember, I'm creating this from scratch, but You guys are already going to have this in the presentation, though. Okay, so this is title and text. Now, because it is in the appropriate format, to convert this to Turning Point, I'm just going to click on Insert Object and insert the charts. So when I insert vertical, it has now turned it over to an interactive slide. Okay, so title and text is the format that it needs to be in. Just insert the chart, and as long as it's in that format, you now have an interactive slide. You guys have any questions on that process?
No, that's great.
Excellent. Next option, animated 2D/3D charts. So if you want your students or audience to see their results in a flashier format than just the one-dimensional charts that we see below, this will enable you to do that. And this will actually put your charts into a flash format. Now, I initially have to insert a regular chart slide, which I did, because that actually inserts the slide into the presentation. Now I can exchange the one-dimensional for a three-dimensional by just clicking on the one that I want. Now, first of all, it's going to tell me that I must have Flash installed in order for this to work. I do, thank you very much. Click Close. And right now it's just going to give me this very generic screenshot. There's nothing special about this. But let me show you what this looks like in presentation mode. Okay, so I'm going to put it on Simulated again. Sure, we'll reset. All right, we'll start the slideshow. Now, when I shut down polling on this question, it's going to show the results in a quite different format. Gives it in a flash.
Oh.
Yeah, so this is a little bit different right here. Now, the only drawback with this is that I use my mouse to advance through presentations. My mouse is actually disabled right now. Okay, so I can use anything else but my mouse to advance. The reason I can't use my mouse, because if I go in the upper right-hand corner and click the drop-down and put in a 3D donut chart, I can go ahead and click on these pie pieces to separate, to highlight something, then another click will bring the pie pieces back together. Okay, so that's the reason why the mouse is disabled, because you can go ahead and do that. Okay, so this is an animated 2D/3D chart. Now if I click Escape, it's just going to go ahead and bring me back to the original way that it looked. Any questions on that animated chart?
No, that's neat.
All right, now, another option that we have here is grid. This is a response grid and also a non-response grid. So if you guys are ever going to be using participant list, the response and non-response grid will let you know during the presentation who has answered the question and who has not yet answered. So if I put in this response grid, right now it's just showing that I have something inserted in the lower right-hand corner. But if I was using a participant list, when I bring this live in the presentation, I'm going to have little tiny boxes down below which have each individual's name in the box. And as that person answers the question, the box correlating with their name is going to light up. So only the people who have not yet answered the question do not have boxes that are lit up. So this is the response grid. The other one that we have in here is the non-response grid. Non-response grid does just the opposite. It starts out as a box with all the student names in there. And as the students respond, the box correlating to their name disappears. And the other ones in here, I like giving my 2 cents about these. Hope you guys don't mind. But the Answer Now indicator does just that. It just indicates to the audience that this indeed is a turning point slide. I don't like to even talk about these that much because I don't really see the overall point of it. Because if I put this in, you can see I have something that says please choose now. And this is going to appear automatically with the slide when I'm running the presentation. But the way that I look at it is that if I'm a participant in this audience and I have a card sitting in front of me and a slide comes up and has a question on it, I can usually put 2 and 2 together. That I should probably pick up the question and answer it using this card. I probably don't need anything that's going to prompt me to answer the question. In fact, I think it's a little bit distracting because now it's taking my attention off of the question and putting it on this little please choose now. Just my 2 cents.
I have a question related.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Say you wanted to have a question slide and you wanted to explain the question before they could vote. Right now, I think when it goes on the slide, polling is open automatically.
There's no way to actually alter that. So regardless of the slide type or anything like that, there's no way to change polling opening up automatically. Okay, so we'll always do that regardless. Now, the only thing that saves you is, let's say that the slide pops up, and it's a turning point slide, and somebody just clicks a button, whether they do it accidentally or they answer the question immediately, but you want to explain the question a little bit. While polling is open, participants can change their answer choices many times as they want to. So if they initially hit something that they didn't want, As long as polling is open, they can just click another button to change their response. So that is an option for them. But there's no way to actually alter the polling opening up.
I think I was just saying to Jeff, there might be two ways we could do it. One is you have a slide before the polling slide.
That looks the same.
That looks the same, but it's just a slide.
Right.
You know, that's one way. And another way is just the style of the presenter saying, okay, I want to talk, don't hit your buttons. I want to ask you this question. Now, before I ask this question, I want to clarify, you know what I mean? It's the style of the presenter, just having...
Yeah, it really does. Yeah, I agree. I think it's a good idea to put, and I've seen it done before where people put the question on the previous one, especially if the question is really long and involved. They'll put it on a regular PowerPoint slide, and then they'll say, okay, does everybody have their answer choice? Good. We're going to advance now, and I want you to go ahead and answer it with the buttons. Yeah. And a lot of it comes down to just, you said, you got to have a little bit of management when you're giving a presentation. And if you just let people do whatever they want with those cards, then they will. They're going to start clicking buttons whenever they want to because it's a new technology and it's a novel thing for them. But if you have a little bit of control and say, hey, don't press anything yet, I want to talk about this, then usually people adhere to that.
Can you use PowerPoint animations so the questions aren't visible right away until you click?
I don't recommend using any animations whatsoever on these turning point slides because do remember, if you put any of these inserted objects in here, such as a countdown timer or a correct answer indicator, this is being read by Turning Point as a custom animation, and it comes in a particular sequence. And we know a countdown timer comes in on our first click. Well, if you have something else that's supposed to come in on the first click, because it's PowerPoint exclusively, it's going to override the countdown timer. Basically, I've seen some really bad things happen when you start including animations on these Turning Point slides. Turning Point doesn't work.
Got it.
Okay, so just I like to use Turning Point slides exactly what they're meant to be used for, and that's just to show the question and the answer choices and get feedback, knowledge checks, engagement. And I save the animation for the PowerPoint slides. Keep these Turning Point slides nice and clean. All right, now the only other thing we have on here, the response counter. I do want to cover this because this is sometimes misunderstood. Now the response counter, when you first look at this, you think that it counts the number of responses of people who have answered the question, and it will do that. The other thing that it will do that people don't realize is shut down polling automatically once everybody has answered the question. Well, this is good and bad. It's good because you don't have to shut it down as the presenter. It'll do it for you. It's bad because, well, what if not everybody answers the question? And also, what if that last person who answers would like to change their response? Well, they can't because they shut down polling. And I also have to let the software know ahead of time how many people are going to be in my audience. And I actually do this through the Turning Point Settings. So if I go to Tools, down to Settings, I click on Response Device in the upper left-hand corner. The third category down is Response Card Miscellaneous, and the second option is Expected Devices. So if I know there's going to be exactly 50, that's what I'm going to type out. Now when I go to the Insert Object and put in a response counter, put in a meter. I don't know why I didn't take on the, I didn't apply all. My apologies. I should have applied it all and it would have taken it on. But right now we have 0.75, which means when I run this live, the 75th person who answers this question is going to shut down the polling. Now the reason this is good is it will shut down the polling automatically. But the reason that I don't think it's always good is because it disables what Turning Point is all about, and that allows people to change their answer choice as many times as they want to when polling is open. But the 75th person doesn't get that chance because they shut down polling. I don't use this personally in any presentation. I don't see the benefit of seeing the number of people who have answered the question because I can see that in the upper right-hand corner in the Turning Point show bar.
That's what I was going to say, is it's in the upper right anyways, right?
Exactly. I can see it anyway in the upper right-hand corner. So once again, I think it's just a little bit of fluff on the slide. My opinion on it. Last thing we have on here is stats. Now these are stats in accordance to this particular question. Okay, so this will show you the average response of this question. Okay, so you might see something like 1.25, which means it was right in between 1 and 2 for the average response, median, variance, and also standard deviation. Now this is not going to show it for combine the entire presentation. This is only going to show it question by question. Now the last thing that I want to do, guys, is just pop in here to the Turning Point Settings and talk about some of the things you can change. And I want to just talk about the most popular ones that people take advantage of. So first of all, when you come into your settings, in the lower right-hand corner you have two options, Common Settings and All Settings. My recommendation is to click on All Settings and leave it there. Now when you first come in here, it's going to be on Common Settings. Take it off of that. Put it on All Settings. and then in the upper left-hand corner, click on Presentation. When you click on Presentation, that means that anything you change on the right-hand side applies for every single turning point slide. Now, it also gives you the option of clicking on an individual question, which means that anything you change to the right only applies for that question only. Now, if I click on Presentation, first thing within here I want to show you guys is Chart Settings. Second option down is Chart Colors. Now, when you first come in here, it's not going to say User Defines, but it's actually going to say Color Scheme. These are the color of charts the PowerPoint has chosen for you. So if you click on Color Scheme and change it to User Defines, I can now click on Chart Color number 1, and it gives me this little color template. And I can change it to the color that I want to pop up when the person answers the question, or when the people answer the question. So now it's this darker green color. And I can do this for each one of the charts. So think of chart color number 1 as the first bar on the first answer choice of every single question. The other thing that I want to point out is just chart labels. Notice on my, let me go ahead and insert just a regular vertical charts. And I'll go ahead and put in some answer choices here. Notice below these charts how I have good and great. When you first go ahead and start building these slides, you guys may notice that you don't have the actual text of the answer below the charts. You instead just have number 1 and number 2. But if you go into your settings, click on Presentation, go to that third category, which is Chart Settings, Chart Labels has 2 options. Bullets, which is the default, which is the one that yours is set to, and also aliases. Change it to aliases like I have it, and now you'll see the actual text of the answer choices below each chart. Chart value formats. Do you want your answer choices to appear in whole numbers or percentages? It allows you to determine it from here. The other really good one within here is Review Only. If you set Review Only to True, instead of the audience being able to see the results after you shut down polling, it's just going to go to the next question in the presentation. The only time you'll be able to see the results from a session is when you generate the reports, so no charts will be shown. The last thing that I want to show you is located towards the bottom in this Response Reminder Settings. This is everything that's located within the Insert Object dropdown. So if you know you want a countdown timer in every single turning point slide, well, instead of going to Insert Object and inserting it every single time, you can make it a default option right from here. Okay, and you can do that for everything. All right, guys, I think I squeezed in quite a bit there. And I typically don't like to just go ahead and throw you a bunch of information, but that's also the reason I record it too, so you can go back and view it if you'd like. But do you guys have any additional questions? Anything out there that's still not matching up? Any knowledge gaps that I can help fill in?